Hey guys, welcome back to JK Rants and Reviews. I'm John. Today we're going to talk about the 2009 Dead Snow.
I fell. And this might be... Broke it. He broke it! Let's get bigger thing, cuz?
No.
You're gonna break the table. And here we go.
Real quick, I want to give a shout out to my buddy Sean, who recommended this movie. He asked me to do a review on it and made me an offer I could not refuse. So Sean, this one's for you. So real fast, we're going to have a spoiler and non-spoiler review. We're going to start off with the non-spoiler and then head on over to the spoiler, and I will give a good 10 seconds for you to click off if you have not seen the movie and if you're interested. So this is our first foreign film, subtitled film. I don't really watch a whole lot of subtitle films because I don't read good. I really did enjoy it though. It's a lot of fun. You can tell this is a movie where along the way it tells you, hey, you're here to have fun. You love gore, you love horror, you like a little comedy with your horror. This is the movie for you. And it treads a line of being goofy and serious and jump scares and good gore and, from what I can tell with having to read, good acting. And so I really enjoyed it. But you got to know what kind of movies you're into. If you're into movies like Evil Dead, Shaun of the Dead, things like that, you'll probably be interested in this movie and have a lot of fun with it. If you're into more movies like Halloween, Psycho, you know, more serious slashers, you probably won't be into this. So overall though, the acting is fun, the cinematography is good. It feels kind of like a low budget, but with a lot of love. Like the shots of the mountains look great. The fight scenes are pretty good. The music's good. The score is really good. The ratcheting of tension in certain spots. They don't overuse like jump scares or anything else like that. So overall, I think this is a really good movie. For what it is, I'll probably give it a solid 6. And this is definitely a movie I would revisit. This is definitely something I wouldn't mind having in my collection. I just feel like it's, you know, you got to be in the mood for it. You got to be in the mood for it. But it is a good movie. It is definitely watch-worthy. And if you like movies like this, it's definitely a purchase-worthy in my opinion. So guys, I'm going to go into the spoiler review, so go ahead and click off. Make sure and check out the rest of our videos. See you next time. Alright, so let's go into spoilers. I love when movies start off with fun music. It starts off with the gal running down the hill and there's fun music behind her. So it kind of tells you what you're going to be in for. But then all of a sudden, like, the music stops, she falls down the hill, hits a rock, and all of a sudden these zombies are all over her, and then boom. So then we cut to the daytime and we have 4 guys in the vehicle and they're on Easter break, headed out to a cabin in the mountains, gonna have a good time. Right away it kind of sets up that you have some smart characters, that they have some background. You find out they're medical students. So 2 of them have been in the military, and then they talk about, you know, in an avalanche, if you're covered in snow, you spit and then you watch which way gravity takes it, and that's how you know which way to dig out. So very intelligent, very capable. And then they head out towards the woods, and as they're on the hike, it's funny because they reference Friday the 13th, Evil Dead 1 and 2, and April Fool's Day. And that's the movie's way of telling you, look, we're going to borrow some stuff from these previous movies because they're great, and this is the same flavor. They're going to have the same tone throughout this movie. And it kind of just, it's nice because it's not trying to pretend it's something it's not, and it gets ahead of that real fast. And it also sets up the fact that they're out in the mountains. This is 2009, and cell phones don't work. So it gets rid of the cell phone, and it makes things, you know, more scary, more isolated. It's fantastic. It sets that up in a very few sentences, and it's great. And the comedy and the chemistry builds pretty well between these characters. Once they hit the cabin, they immediately start partying, and it looks like a blast. I mean, I've been tubing on a boat before, and it's a lot of fun, but tubing on a snowmobile looks next level awesome. They also do some drinking games, and they do Twister, and it's just a lot of fun. You really feel like they're out having a good time, no cares in the world, just trying to enjoy their Easter break. Right in the middle of enjoying their Easter break, Mr. Exposition, that's what we're going to call him, shows up at the front door and creepily asks them for a cup of coffee. He sits down, and it's like this weird interrogation where everybody's afraid and they're hiding behind the table, and all the friends are sitting behind, and he's sitting on the couch, and he drops exposition on how in World War II Germany came over and was killing people and stealing all their loot, and eventually the townsfolk, the locals, rose up. They got axes and scythes and anything they could fight back with, and kicked out these Nazis out of their town. And the surviving Nazis, the colonel and a few, or however many, escaped into the mountains, and they chased them into the mountains, and they could not find them. So they just left them there, assuming that they froze to death. Finally, after a cup of coffee and drinking one of their beers, he really tries to tell them, like, look, there's some evil in these mountains. Be careful out here. It's not just fun and games. We go to the main guy, Vigard, and he has a nightmare of his girlfriend outside dead. And that kind of pushes him, because she hasn't shown up, because this is the gal from the beginning of the movie. So he takes off to find her while the rest of them hang out and go party some more. At night, the old exposition guy is in his tent. This is interesting because it's exploring more into the bad guy, because at first you think they're just zombies that can run and they're fast, but he's out there investigating because he hears a noise and he gets his throat slashed real fast. And then he falls back into the tent, and one of the Nazi zombies comes in and just stabs him multiple times, like he owes him money, and he already threatened to break his thumbs. And so you can see that not only are these guys going to eat you or bite you or they're going to kill you, but they will use weapons of at least a knife variety. Vigard goes out to find his girlfriend, and he's like ramping this snowmobile everywhere. I'm just like, man, what happens if that breaks? Like, you are out in the middle of nowhere, it's super cold. I mean, I guess he probably knows his way around for whatever reason, but I guess you can follow the tracks of the snow. But I was thinking, nah, I don't know, if I'm seriously worried about my girlfriend's life, I'm probably not going to just, you know, do tricks all day on my snowmobile. Anyway, so he stumbles upon the tent of the old exposition dude and sees blood and he sees tracks, so he goes off to follow the tracks. Well, he ends up, you know, Batman Begins falling through the ground into a cave and gets knocked out. So he's done for a little bit. Then we go back to the cabin, and you got all the friends hanging out, still having a good time. The big guy, Erland, he goes down to find the beer and then finds this chest full of valuables that the old exposition guy was talking about that the Nazis stole. And then he tells everybody, hey, I gotta go to the bathroom, I gotta go poop. Okay, cool. Cool to tell everybody you're gonna go poop. So he goes out to the pooper to poop. He's 2.5 minutes into it. It's gonna be a while for me anyway. He's 2.5 minutes into it, and Chris just rolls up into the Love Shack now, Love Poop Shack, and just hops on. What? She takes her shirt off. It's super cold outside. Crazy scene. I was confused the whole time. I was like, wow, how drunk are you? Weird. Super weird. On the way to the bathroom, though, I forgot to say. On the way to the bathroom, Erland drops one of the coins, and it reminded me of Pirates of the Caribbean, where one of the coins falls into the water and it sends off that like shock wave of "come get me." Anyway, so you know they're coming for him now. Erland finishes the deeds and goes inside. Chris apparently has to use the restroom now. It's now a restroom. She gets dragged into the pooper. Ugh. And then she crawls out of the pooper. Crazy. So halfway through, she gets killed, but not before she can warn the others, and they come outside and they can't find her. And now the tension's starting to get a little there because everybody knows something's wrong because they can't find her. Their other friend hasn't shown up yet. So they find a shotgun over one of the doors and they go out to investigate. The guy that grabs the shotgun is also the guy that cut his finger earlier, and there's been some dialogue about how he's afraid of blood even though he's a med student. Like, he barely cuts himself and basically shuts down. So this is his first step into kind of controlling or stepping up to what's happening, and so there's a little character development there. And when he grabs the shotgun, it's definitely kind of a throwback to Evil Dead. The first one, we actually had the not double barrel, just the single barrel shotgun. One of the gals goes over to the window and she's looking out, and then bam, she sees Chris's head, and she gets like a second of relief, and then boom, the head kind of moves away. That was a great shot. Love that shot. Really scary. This is where things start to go down. Like, the zombies are trying to come in and trying to get him. Erland is by the door and he gets grabbed through the window, and then this explosion rip head off thing was awesome. Vigard wakes up in the caves, and then he's surrounded by like Nazi memorabilia, like guns and helmets and flags, and then he finds his girlfriend's head. He runs out, gets attacked by a couple zombies. You can see that he's off guard, but he can handle himself pretty well. It's your first real glimpse of the zombies, and they look pretty good. They look pretty good. This fight scene with Vigard and the zombies is important because Vigard bites one of the zombies and it feels pain, and it can be hurt and stopped. So you kind of get a little bit more of, you know, these guys are vulnerable. Like, if you were to, I don't know, smash their hand, they would let go of something, or if you kick them, they're going to move back a little bit or something like that. They're not just going to keep coming at you like Jason Voorhees. Back at the cabin, this really feels like Call of Duty, where zombies are trying to come in and they're barricading the windows. They take out a few and barricade the windows. It's smart, and they react really fast, and it is a lot of fun. Like, it's having fun with what's happening, but it doesn't get too cheesy once again. There's 4 left in the cabin, 2 guys, 2 gals, and they decide to separate because they always do in horror movies, because they thought one of them's got to get to the car to make it. So I don't know if they draw straws or whatever, but the 2 guys stay in the cabin, and the 2 gals make a run for it. The guys go outside and make noise, and the girls run off for it. 2 gals that are running off, the blonde gets knocked out. She wakes up, the zombies are around her, they're tearing her insides out, and she's just groggy enough, just awake enough to grab one of the grenades, and then boom, you hear an explosion, and she takes out the guys around her, which is really cool. I like that these characters never stop fighting, and they're going to go down swinging if they have to. The gal that's in red with the dreadlocks, she's running around and she ends up hiding in a tree, and there's a bird there that's making noise. She has to grab a bird and like bash his head up against the tree, but then she looks down and boom, the zombies are looking right at her. They start to climb up. She gets one in the head with, I think, a branch, and then she has to run from the other one. She eventually gets to the edge of a cliff and she starts stomping. The cliff falls and takes both of them down. You're not sure if she survives or not. It eventually cuts back to her and she's underneath there, and you can see the camera, and you can see snot coming out of her nose, and it once again, it's calling back to the beginning of the movie where it was telling you about your spit, and then the camera turns around, and so that way you know that she knows how to get out of there. She gets out of this thing and she sees the zombie that was chasing her. His head is just above the ground, and she full-on offside kick punts him right in the head, and it goes back at the cabin. The 2 guys are in there, and they're holding the fort down. One guy's making a Molotov cocktail, but like an idiot, he misses out of the window and sets the cabin on fire. So they've got to run into the shed, not the poop shed or the love shack, just the shed. And they go in there and they see a hammer and they see a pitchfork and they see a chainsaw, and it's straight out of Evil Dead. I mean, but once again, they referenced it in the beginning of the movie. They're completely aware. It works. They're going to make a stand. Our Ash character, which was the guy who was afraid of blood, has lost his nerdy glasses now, has his hair kind of with some more volume, has blood on his face, blue shirt. He's looking like Ash. Shotgun. He's got the chainsaw, he's ready to go, and the other guy's got a knife and some other things, and they just go right into like a dozen zombies and just start cutting them in half. There's fun music in the background, and they just have a good old time. Then Vigard shows up with his machine gun snowmobile and mows down the rest of them. And they have this sad moment where Vigard realizes his friends didn't make it, and boom, out of nowhere, zombies stab him multiple times. They go off on Vigard. Then they grab each extremity and break him apart. Awesome. Gore was awesome. All while his friends are just sitting there watching. The 2 survivors, they start going off again, killing more zombies. Our Ash character gets a hand on him, he turns around and just lays the hammer down on his, he didn't know, dreadlock girlfriend who survived. So then the time slows way down. He's very emotional. He's seeing his girlfriend die. So then you have what we assume is the Colonel coming around with, like, I think 6 guys with him. And it reminded me of Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles when you got Tatsu and he's like, attack! And then they just start running at him. And then so the Ash character is done at this point. He takes his shotgun out and he just starts dropping them. Unfortunately, this time he gets bit in his arm and he starts talking about what happens if I turn into one of these. And so he takes the chainsaw and, just like Ash, in a similar form, in a similar fashion, and with similar screams, takes his arm right off with the chainsaw, burns it into the fire, and then he's ready to go again. But what's funny about this is you're like, okay, he did it. He went to the extreme. I get it. Next thing you know, zombie comes out of the snow out of nowhere and bites him in the junk. And then he looks over at his buddy, and then he looks at the chainsaw, and his buddy's like, you can't cut that off. Right at this moment, you got the Colonel dude basically becoming the Night King from Game of Thrones, and he just like raises up, and there's just zombies everywhere. And you're like, that sucks. And they're just standing there looking at it. Next thing you see, you just see them hauling down the hill. Unfortunately, the other character, who I don't really know how to specify because he doesn't really have anything in there, he gets hit in the head with one of the hammers he was using by I think it was the Colonel, and then you look over and his intestines are like stuck on a tree and he gets it hard. And you see the Colonel take one of the coins, I think it was, from the box, and the Ash character realizes, oh man, that's what they're after. So he hightails it right back to the cabin and falls into the remains of the cabin, finds the box, and gives the box back. And then he just takes off running towards the cars. On the way, you think everything's fine. He's gonna make it. He's tired. He's exhausted. You hear the car go open. And he sits down. And he's only got one arm. He's trying to put a seatbelt on because, you know, click it or ticket. He's fumbling with the keys. And boom, he sees one of the coins drop on the floor. And just then he looks up and he goes, oh, F. And then boom, you look over and the Colonel punches over and it goes fades to black. So much fun. I had a really good time with this movie. I would definitely say it's purchase worthy. I'm gonna go ahead and give it a 6 because, like I said, it's not Jaws, it's not 1978's Halloween, it's not Jurassic Park, but it's a fun horror slasher zombie comedy, comedy horror. I had a lot of fun with it. I would definitely recommend it. And I would probably buy it if I saw it. There is a sequel. I'm going to watch that very soon. I hope it's just as good, if not better. But anyway, thank you, Sean, for recommending me to do this. I really appreciate it. Everybody else, make sure and like, comment, subscribe, hit that notification bell so you can get some more R&R. Until next time, JK out.